So we as individuals need to be very careful and be very intentional and very insightful and practice mindfulness, not just to understand ourselves, but to understand the nature and the engagement of people that are connected to us. Because sometimes someone can befriend you, connect with you, want to be close to you, and the relationship and the intention for that relationship is not motivated by love, it's motivated by fear. It is motivated by trauma. And so this person shows up in your life dressed in friendliness, being very amicable, and yet this person has expectations that you'll never be able to meet because they're expecting you to do for them what someone else was supposed to do. They're expecting you to outlove the love they lost. They're expecting you to be able to bully the ideas that are bullying them. They're expecting you to do for them what they cannot do for themselves. And so they're expecting you to be perfect, to be consistent, to always say yes, to never let them down, to never fail. And so this is super important to be aware of, because if you haven't done your work, someone who is now being fueled by their trauma and how they engage with you, you can now be fueled by trauma and fear. And now you believe you have to prove something to them, to prove that you are lovable, to prove that you are the one that can save them, to prove that you have worth and value. And so when you're not able to perform for them and then they make you feel bad, it turns into this toxic cycle, and narcissism can get into that. There's all types of things that could get into that. But I digress. At the end of the day, without it even getting so deep, even on the most simple terms, boundaries, self-awareness, mindfulness is critical for us to show up as the best version of ourselves in this world and in this life. It is so important to understand what our triggers are, to understand what our limitations are, to know when we can't accommodate certain things, to know what season we're in. That doesn't mean that you are in cancel culture, and that does not mean that you're trying to just go through life alone and you're cutting everybody off. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if a relationship in your life is motivated purely by fear, it is unhealthy and it will not work. There will not be anything good that will come from it. Does not mean that every relationship in your life is going to have a perfect, healthy balance of that. But there needs to be an intention to work towards that. There are going to be relationships where you're helping someone learn what it's like to be in a healthy dynamic. There's going to be relationships where you are going to be that example. But what I'm referring to is people full on throwing themselves. Majority of the relationships in their life, they're depleted and they're motivated by fear, and they're just there to please people because they've never taken the time to even assess why they do what they do. That's what I'm addressing. It's so critically important for us to be kind, yes, to be loving, yes, to be respectful and intentional with people. But man, it is so important for us to be kind to ourselves, to do the work in ourselves, to understand who we are, and to do things with intention and purpose.